I was waiting for ads to finish. Alright, let's talk patch. Oh goodness. Okay. So patch 7.24. The meta's kind of been figured out right now. Oh, not figured out, but after watching like a very little bit of competitive play on this patch, as well as playing a godforsaken high amount of games, I kind of have a pretty good grasp on what I expect from the preseason right now. Just thinking about every situation, top lanes kind of tanks and then tank killers. Stuff like Jace Rumble does really, really well in that lane, but Bruiser's kind of got the shaft in top lane. Mid lane is, and bot lane especially, are very poke-oriented champions. Azir came back in full force, and Xerath also came back as well. And then you have counters to each of these coming out, and they're pretty amusing. I've seen Veigar, I've seen Varus mid AD, and bot lane has devolved into some 4 poke champion, really, really weird type of ranged meta, but then there's still Aftershock that's fairly strong, and then junglers are carry-oriented junglers. At the moment, in the current meta, I think bot lane and jungle are really, really strong at the moment, with mid quickly following that up as probably the 3 most important like collective roles on the map, with top lane being a little bit less important than everything else. What I would want to see in this patch, I would like them to tone down poke a little bit. I think that generally there shouldn't be that much damage in the game, and a lot of it is because early damage in the game is nuts. So Comet kind of applies to that, Area applies to that, but I think Scorch is a really, really big problem and should probably get nerfed. Sudden Impact, I'd like a very small nerf on. Maybe Triumph, I'd like to look at a nerf, and then I'd like to see maybe some buffs toward top lane bruisers, and I'd like Aftershock to be nerfed too. So as we tone down poke, we can also tone down like Aftershock being like ridiculously strong at being able to make you tanky, and I think that would bring you into like a nice happy medium. So all that stuff is what I'm looking for in this patch. I'm probably gonna get absolutely none of it, so I'm interested. Let's see what we find out. Anyways, Green Summoners, this is the final patch. Previously, prior to this patch, before I keep going on and talking about it, they said that they would have this patch plus a hotfix patch before the new year. And so this was the last major patch with one hotfix patch yet to be determined. So last patch of the year, what are they going to do? The final patch of the preseason means a lot of tweaks based on our first round of data. The game always changes a decent amount this time of year, so we're looking to make sure that heading into new season, most champions at least feel the same, and some might even have potential to do more. A number of champions love the new runes, have been smashing the competition as a result, while others find themselves without the keystone they'd want. We're looking to give those characters some love in the meantime, and they'll go from there. Some of the runes themselves are either on the strong side or weak side, so there's some balance tuning coming on that front. We want to make sure that we don't head into the winter break with huge outliers still hanging around, so we'll be doing another minor patch before then. Finally, we're rolling out major updates to the health bars in the game, hoping to increase clarity, overall visibility, in some of the less noticeable moments of the game. Let's get started. Ignore this, so we're jumping straight into champions. Aurelion Sol. So, our cooldown decreased. This patch's buff to phase rush on ranged champions will help revitalize the Starforger, but he's far below par to deserve a little extra. I actually haven't seen much Soul. Usually in high elo, there's 1 or 2 Soul players, so it's hard for me to generally tell the relative strength of this champion. I think that he's kind of weak, but he's also a champion that requires a ton of games, like over 20, over 30, 40 games to be able to really get the hang of how to play the champ, because he plays very differently than a lot of other champions. They did say they were going to buff phase rush, so that's going to be a huge buff to this kind of champion. Usually every phase rush champion got pretty much nerfed, except for in situations where you can compensate by running Ghost Flash on Seal Spellbook to push it, to compensate for the phase rush nerf. So champions like Talia see like a little bit less win rate, champions like Aurelion Sol, I think even champions like Nasus, and just a bunch of stuff, because I think the prior a lot of these champions use Storm Raiders, and Storm Raiders is massively overtuned, really, really OP. And I think they nerfed it a lot alongside Warlords with the new fleet-footed thing, and I think they're buffing both of them back up a little bit to make sure they're, I guess, viable. But I don't mind this buff. Seems okay, no problem. I think the phase rush thing is going to be a lot more helpful. Bard, base health regen and meep damage increase. The new trading landscape has done a lot to buff the trading patterns of sports, while Bard has pretty much stayed constant. As a result, he's been on the punchable side, so we're giving him some love. He gets more health regen and more meep base damage. Okay, I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that a lot of the bot lane, again, devolved into a humongous poke meta with MF, Varus, Karma, Jhin, Xerath. Bunch of random poke champions bot lane throwing stuff at each other, and Bard doesn't do great in that situation, so him getting more health health regen buffs as well as a little bit more damage kind of solidifies or helps him out through the lane phase. Additionally, whenever Leona is really strong, Bard actually sucks against Leona, because I don't think Bard can do anything when he gets touched by the all-in, and he can't peel very well either, so he is just not in a great spot right now. I like the buff. Camille, passive shield damage duration increased, Q recast window increased. So Fervor Battle has provided Camille with a decent amount of sustained damage. Without that, she's losing more trades. Rather than straight up increasing your trade power, we're giving her more room to use Q or a second portion of Q effectively potentially while protected by her passive shield. So this is a really interesting thing to me. So I haven't seen the rest of the patch notes, but I'm really surprised they decided to buff Camille before buffing some of the weaker top lane carries. I think Camille has always been rather viable top lane, even competitively one of the best top lane carry picks in the game. And rather than see buffs to her, I'd rather see buffs to other, top lane bruisers like Darius. Darius is a nice one. Definitely needs some buffs. I'd like to see maybe Aurelia buffs. Maybe Jax would be cool. Like maybe some Wukong, but it's some Aatrox. Camille is probably the last on the list of carry top laners I would buff, because she's always been relatively good at what she does. So I'm just surprised I'm seeing these buffs. I can understand why they're doing it, but I'm fine with these buffs as long as other bruisers got buffed with her. If not, it seems really out of place. Anyways, let's keep going. Darius. Passive bleed damage and bonus AD and max stacks increased. So they lost bonus attack damage from both runes and Fervor Battle were switched to a new system. But he got bonus attack damage at the same time. His passive scales with bonus, not total AD, and his training pattern has suffered as a result. So what are they doing? They're making it so that he gets generally more damage from his bleed and more damage from his ulti by a little bit. So you'd imagine at this time, right now, Darius should be smashing the competition. Because like I said before at the very beginning, what is the top lane meta right now? The top lane meta is composed of tanks and tank beaters. So Rumble, Jace, and then tanks. Ornn, Chen, Maokai are all really, really strong right now. So Darius has always perpetually been a tank killing champion. A champion that does extremely well against tanks. Because they shouldn't have the damage to be able to kill him. And as he stacks 5 stacks of the tanks, he becomes a monster and like just straight up can kill tanks due to the extra AD and the bonus might damage, the bonus AD that he gets from Noxian Might. However, in the current state of the game, actually Darius gets beaten by tanks due to a lot of the facets, and mainly because of Bramble Vest being so limiting to his actual healing potential and his trading. So I think the damage of tanks is really high right now, as well as Bramble Vest has kind of caused Darius to be garbage. Any of these buffs, like these buffs look cool, right? What are these buffs going to do for him? Is he going to see any more play, or is he going to feel any better? Not necessarily. So they made his late game slightly better, mid-late game slightly better, but the reason why you don't pick Darius right now is you can't get him out of lane, because what you should want with Darius is that you smash your lane, or you get a significant lead as a counter pick into tanks, and then you take that lead into the mid game. And like realistically, the only thing I think about Darius right now is like, I feel really bad that he exists. And so maybe people haven't figured it out. Maybe Darius mains, they haven't racked their head enough to figure out truly how to build the best Darius possible. However, I just think that the champion needs more help than this. Mainly maybe a Bramble Vest nerf would help out this champion more than any of this. Any of this stuff. Just delete this, and then like I always said with Bramble Vest and the Executioner's Calling, it should not have 50% at the minimum rank. At a sub 1,000 gold buy, you should not be hard countering certain champions. I think that you should be countering them to a certain extent. I would like 30%, 35% healing reduction on the first buy. Very, very reasonable, still very powerful, however, not the full extent. And then when you build the full item, you get the 50%. I love that like kind of build up. However, that's not something that Riot seems to want to do, and it causes a lot of balance issues with a bunch of champions across the board. Anything that takes healing, Warwick, Darius, Soraka, all tend to like just Fiora tend to be hard countered to some extent by this item, and it makes balance almost impossible. So I'm hoping sometime in the future that they adjust the debuff accordingly to that, or in some different way, because until they do that, I don't know how they can balance some of these champions. Oh, Grievous wins is 40%. Well, then I'd like to nerf to below that. 25 to 30%. The first one would be nice. Don't get me wrong. I think Darius buffs will be nice. I think that the bleed damage increase, especially early, will be cool. But I don't necessarily think that this is going to be that helpful. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't play much Darius, but off the top of my head, I think that he has bigger problems than just this. Let's keep going. Evelyn. So Evelyn's magic resist shred now applies to attack or ability that procs it. Okay. Just some bug fixes for the champion. The champion itself has actually surprised me with how good she's been. I've seen a lot of Evelyn players recently, especially in solo queue, which can kind of tear apart the enemy team. I still think her level 6 cooldown ulti is a little bit too long. However, she's been performing better in my games than I've expected. So I don't mind her not changing anything, and it's cool that she gets a bug fix that kind of helps her out. Get in my book. Ezreal. Best AD in the game. Multiple flexible build paths with the Gauntlet as well as Triforce, and just too good. So any buffs will be good. So back when they buffed Mystic Shot in 7.17, he was struggling, and then he no longer needs that. They reverted the AD buff. Still going to be a great champion. Nothing changes. Unless they nerf Klepto as well, he's still going to be very, very, very good. But still a nice buff to him so he doesn't do 190 billion damage with his Q at level 1. Galio. W now deals damage? Does it deal damage before? Passive ratio decreased, E cooldown decreased. It's struggling a bit, so we're buffing up his damage. However, when a tie is strength to slightly riskier actions, such as diving in with Justice Punch and landing a good shield of Durant time. Essentially, as a beefy champion who has the potential to dish out damage, he should be rewarded for taking positional risks. Okay, that's the idea. They're lowering his passive AP, and his W now goes from 20 to 60 to 60 to 180 with 0.6 AP with a 0.4 AP ratio buff. And then they're lowering his Justice Punch cooldown by... Well, I mean, this straight up just buffs the champion. Pretty sure. It makes his wave clear a little bit worse, but I mean, Galio really hasn't had problems with wave clear. Even with this nerf passive, he's not going to be a big deal. The thing about AP Galio is the old AP Galio never maxed E. But the main reason why is because if you maxed E, you just killed yourself anyways. The W max gave you a lot more defensive cooldowns. You'd max that, and you just all in with W after poking a lot with Q. And your play pattern has not changed. It just made your level, your like secondary skill up actually very, very powerful because you get this additional nuke on W that you didn't have before. So they just straight up buffed Galio, and because you're encouraged to max W second, you're going to be more of like an unkillable threat while you're channeling W, and the W flash is going to be a very deadly initiation now. Cool that they're buffing him. Surprised they're buffing him in this way. And Especially because they said they want to tie your strength to slightly riskier actions. You know how you would have been able to tie your strength to riskier actions is if you gave like this buff to E, because then you'd be forced to max a riskier option. But from what I understand, when you're playing AP Galio immediately, no one maxed E second in the first place. So you're just making the current skill order on Galio better than it was already, which is why this is kind of confusing to me. I don't necessarily think Galio is going to be very good, but I think that he's at the point where like he's moving to the point where it's a little bit scary, where he could be strong again as probably an anti magic damage threat. Ivern, growth health cost decreased. Relies on trigger seeds, low cooldown to help him survive. Transition from Thunderlords to Burstier Electrocute has given aggressive junglers an easier time to take down Ivern. Okay. So what are they doing? They're making it so that he can actually clear the jungle without dying. Okay, that's a really big buff, really nice. Because if the enemy chose Ivern, you just ran into the jungle and mess with him, because he would always be half health or lower clearing his jungle because his clear was very unsafe. This will help him out a lot to be able to get through the first clear and be able to actually like play the game. No, it's really good. I like it. I actually think some people are going Airy Ivern. I think that Spellbook Ivern is probably better, especially with the lower summoner cooldown on his Smite. His ability to kind of just counter jungle excessively hard with the Smite CDR might be a lot better than the Airy Ivern I've been seeing. I think that plus this buff will be really, like, as people move more toward that, or potentially move toward that, plus this buff will be really nice. Jarvan, passive and Q damage decreased. Electrocute's high burst damage means Jarvan's laying some serious gank kill threat. True. We're taking away some of the damage to compensate. Okay. So they're nerfing his base damage by 2%, and that'll actually affect his jungle clear a little bit. And Dragon Strike by 20 damage at rank 9. Okay. Still going to be a great champion. He got nerfed a little bit. Not a big deal. That's still going to be great. Top 5 jungler for sure. Karthus, R ratio increased. Losing Death Fire Touch has hurt Karthus overall team fighting. He doesn't have a solid replacement. As such, he needs a little bit more oomph. Really? Then they're buffing Karthus by 1.5. Okay, I think generally no one plays Karthus. This champ is just really... Not only does no one play Karthus, he's worse in the metas where poke is very relevant. And in the current meta, poke is very relevant. And so Karthus doesn't do too great right now. However, because he has a global death ray, he can snowball off like really random kills that you get in solo queue a lot. And so I think he's always going to be a decent champion to play, and buffs towards his ulti just help his like kind of late game, mid game scaling. 0.15 actually is quite a big deal, especially because remember it hits 5 people guaranteed every time. So that's a pretty big buff to him. Especially because another thing, Karthus likes to go a lot of pen right now because his overall ratios aren't great, and pen tends to do more damage than anything else. I think that increasing his AP ratio might change his skill build a little bit, or not skill build, his item build a little bit to be able to maybe rush a death cap faster than you expect before. Leona, W damage decreased. Has always done a lot of magic damage with less magic resistance in the system, plus the new Aftershock rune, it's too much. So they're nerfing everything by 20, even the level 1. Okay, that's cool. I think it's easier to nerf the Aftershock rune than nerf Leona's W damage. But either way works. I think she's one of the best melee initiators right now, and I'm okay with the nerfs. She's a great champion. With her and Leona, or her and Alice are probably tied with the 2 best initiating melee supports in the game. Malzahar, R damage decreased. Should need to press more buttons to kill. Alright. Alright. That's cute. Wow, they nerfed it by a lot too. 0.3 AP ratio off, and they nerfed it by 50 at the very end. I don't disagree with the initial statement. I did think, however, they're going to do it a little bit differently. I thought they would nerf the ulti cooldown rather than nerf the actual damage decreased. But especially when you go into the mid-late game, the actual damage is relevant, but not as important, but not super important. Like it's really good, but the low cooldown is what makes him super impressive because he has enough for every fight. So I thought a different way to nerf Malzahar would have been that they were going to go with that. However, a damage nerf is what they decided to go with. Still think it's fine. I think Malzahar in some way, shape, or form needed to be nerfed because he's too consistent at what he does and he's too easy at what he does. Maokai. God, nerf this champion, Ornn. Please, dear God. Q damage decreased. With less magic resistance around, Maokai's high base damage has made him a bit too threatening for a tank. Yes. They nerfed him by 5 to 25 damage. Is it really that much? I don't think that's even that much. He's still going to be godly. Maokai is still going to be a top 5 top laner. This is not enough to throw him off unless Aftershock gets nerfed as well. I mean, it's a nice nerf, but he's still going to be great. Morgana. Base mana regen increased, mana regen growth decreased. Passive no longer procs on small units, but heals off more off everything else. W cooldown reduced when passive procs. Morgana's existing lane pattern is pretty uninspiring. Press W on the wave, get health pack, keep laning. We're sharpening that pattern to give her more clear success in failure cases and give opponents better windows in which to punish her or deny her lane sustain. Trimming down that generic power allows us to make solo lane Morgana a lot stronger when played well. So what does that mean? It means that she gets more relevant mana early. Wow, her regen growth stat got nerfed by 0.5. But she got such a big mana regen buff early. So what does she do? She no longer gets spell vamp. She gets heals for 15 to 40% of the damage her abilities do to champions, large minions, and large monsters. Okay. Triggers Torment the Soil now reduced by 5% whenever passive triggers. So this is really nice for bot lane because you can hit multiple targets with this, right? So if you're dropping out 2 people, boom, instantly you got 2 procs. What really surprised me about this is that they included the large monsters on this, and they included she's a jungler now, which is interesting because I've been playing some Morgana jungle, and it seems like Riot has really felt that I should keep doing that to my teammates. So when the new patch drops, I will be very interested in trying out Morgana jungle. I think at the moment, what you do, Unsealed Spellbook is giving you 25% CDR reduction on Smite, and you get another 5% down the tree. So 30% Smite CDR means you can use, I think, 2 Smites in 4 camps. On top of this, it seems like you're able to get a lot more Ws while you're clearing, which means that maybe her clear will be pretty good. I don't know. This will be really interesting. I will definitely try her out the first day I play. Ornn, W damage reduced, cooldown increased. With some Fire Cave buffs on the way, see below, Ornn Bellows are going to be too stoked, especially when he's already in a strong stats where dialing back his innate damage. 10 to 18%, okay. Cooldown 13 to 9, great. Good job, really, really good nerfs. Incredible, great. You know what else I would like to see? Maybe his ulti not being a 40-second cooldown at rank 16. That would be cool too. I think that's really what you needed. You needed Ornn to not do so much damage. Because if a champion is going to be as tanky, he shouldn't do stupid amounts of damage and have great initiation as well. And so Maokai usually falls in the same play pattern as the problems with Ornn right now. So reducing one of those 3 are really, really good. Excellent job, right? I do hope that his ulti cooldown gets a little bit of a nerf in the future. However, I am happy they're at least targeting Ornn and Maokai with nerfs. This Ornn nerf means a lot more than the Maokai one, though. Riven Q damage increased. With Fervor Battle, Riven is missing out some decent chunk of her sustained damage. So what has happened? She gets 0.5 total AD, really good for her, and she gets 5 more damage per Q. So 15. She essentially got 15 damage base. Let's point 1. Oh, that's a pretty good buff, actually. That's a pretty big buff. Riven players rejoice. Especially with this plus tank nerfs, Riven players should be pretty happy with this. I think that she'll be maybe not in a great position, but in a much better position than she was before this patch. Shen, Q bonus damage decreased. His ability to win trades on his base damage alone is making a pretty impressive top player in the face now. Yes, dear God, his Q does so much damage. So his base damage got decreased from 15 to 5. Excellent. I think a lot of the tanks suffer from the fact that they do too much damage. And so Shen was putting out like carry-oriented damage within his 3 auto attacks. I think that should almost never be the case. So notice they nerfed the top 3 tanks right now, Shen, Ornn, and Maokai, and they nerfed all damage-oriented buffs, which is a good way to go. Like, if you want tanks to be tanky, which I think inherently they should be, I just don't think they should be doing disgusting amounts of damage at the same time. Good nerf. Sona Q costing. Oh, don't get me wrong though. All these champions are going to be great. So Maokai, Ornn, and Shen still will be excellent top lane champs, but hopefully it'll help bridge the gap between them and other champions, as opposed to them just being the best. Sona Q cost increased, Q flat damage bonus decreased, ratio increased. So even back after a mid lane patch nerf, Sona's lane poke is still overbearing. Wow, holy moly, her mana costs are so high now. Her Q mana cost got nerfed by 15 at rank 1, and it got her aura bonus damage got nerfed by 50%, but buffed like through AP. But who's gonna actually build AP on Sona unless you hate your teammates? I'm surprised they're nerfing Sona this much. I think she's a little bit of a problem, but not this much. And until you get the late game where she becomes a big threat. I am surprised that they decide to go with this nerf. This is definitely a very significant nerf, especially with the Hymn of Valor mana cost nerf. Yeah, just surprised they're nerfing this champ this so hard. Let's move down with Taric. Base damage decreased, base armor decreased. So lots of champions receive bonus armor when they release runes. Most champions didn't have as many armor ratios as Taric does, and as a result, he gained too much from these buffs. Okay, reasonable. So they nerfed his armor by 5. I think Taric's in a great position. He does well against both Leona and Alistar, as well as is a great Guardian, Keystone procer, and can generally be an all-around good champion for bot lane. He's not great into certain champions like Soraka, Janna, and Sona tend to do typically fairly well against Taric, but he can weather the storm against most and has a very unique niche. I think he's one of the best supports right now, but not many people play him, but he's very, very good. So I don't mind nerfs to him at the moment. Xin Zhao, this champion needs to be nerfed. 100%, he's way too good right now. He's getting like insane damage and tankiness for the item build that he's going, which is Cleaver Warrior. I always think that this champion is near unkillable and is impossible to 1v1, which I don't know if anyone should ever be a skirmishing god plus a highly impactful champion in teamfights as well. So what are they going to do? They nerfed his base health by 30, and he nerfed his line damage ratio by 0.1. That's it? Honestly, maybe that's fine. I thought it would be more. Yeah, I thought it'd be more. I'm happy for any kind of nerfs on the champion, though. Real talk. I just expected like maybe a little bit more damage nerfs there. York, base attack damage decreased. York benefits from base AD more than any other champ between Triforce Sterix Gauge, Synergy, and his auto reset, which is recently reworked to work on turrets in combination with new runes like Demolish. So pushing Gravedigger has a bit too much damage on Unearth on champions and towers alike. 3 AD base nerf. Do I have to talk about this? Even if he has high synergy between Triforce Sterix, 3 AD is not going to be like a heavy hitter for him. It's something where it's like it's less than 10, less than 5%. Yeah, less than 5% AD. He's still gonna be good. I thought they would nerf other aspects of him. Like I thought that they would maybe make his Q on towers do less damage. I think that's a pretty reasonable trade-off. I don't want Yorick's identity to be destroyed because I think with Demolish plus his Maiden, he now has a significant use in the game because he can't team fight. He's a champion that's garbage at team fighting. You need him to be able to have some reason you pick him, and his reason right now is he is a godlike split pusher tower destroyer. You need to answer him because if not, he will take your entire base. And I like that he's something like that. Whereas before, like he wasn't great at doing that, and now he is. And so I think this isn't gonna really matter for him. Yorick still has that great kind of niche that you want on a team comp if you want something like him. Cool. They didn't nerf him. I thought they would do some... Oh, they nerfed him a little bit. I thought it would be a little bit more. Notice that I do agree that he is a huge benefit of base damage. However, I think that 3 is not that much. I think when we're approaching like the 10% value, probably around 6, that's like a significant, large amount of AD lost. But when we're looking at 3, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. It does affect his ghouls, does affect his Sheen proc, Triforce, and his like... I think it affects his Maiden too, but I still don't think it's that big of a deal. Let's talk about Zoe. So I think Zoe needs to be nerfed. I think that she's too good at what she does. The more I play Zoe, the more I think that she's strong. Even if I'm not very good at her, I think that there's some things about her that shouldn't exist in the game. Her W, for instance, some of the spells that she can pick up are super weird in the sense that they're not tuned correctly. So if the RNG is so harsh early, which I think if you're going to have RNG in the game, if you could push it back past a certain amount of time, it becomes a lot less relevant toward the overall impact of the game. It's different if the Zoe picks up 2 gun blades at level 2 and level 3 and just kills you. Because for some reason, Gunblade in this at level 1 or level 2 or 3 does 125 plus damage. So I think that if there's a way to limit what you could possibly pick up early game from W and then increase the limit to other items, that would be really good. Additionally, I think her E is too good, where the cooldown is too short or the increase in damage is too high. I'm not really sure what. However, I think that especially the hitbox of the spell when it drops on the ground should not be as big as it is. Anyways, let's see what happens. Okay. So now it begins after Q completes, not when it begins. Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty decent cooldown nerf. Fix a buff where Zoe Q recast will sometimes disappear when Sleepy Bubble was cast immediately after Q. Fix a bugs where Q recast would linger. Fix a bug where Q recast would sometimes fix a bug. Okay. Oh, this is really important. Fix a bug where her ulti would occasionally fail to properly extend the range. I've had that happen to me multiple times. Really good. The ratio of spell pickups for minions only 20 seconds, so they're making it so that you have more time to play around these items. That's definitely a way that I didn't think about that Riot could balance her W. So 20 seconds for if you don't know, waves typically spawn around 25-30 seconds, every 25-30 seconds. So by lowering the cooldown by half, it means that you only have one wave to essentially do something with your new spell. I think that's okay. That's really good. Sleepy Trouble Bubble E. So the refund, the cooldown refund's only on champion hit. The drowsy duration is increased by 0.2, progressively growing slow reduced by 20%, max travel distance reduced by 150, trap radius reduced. Holy moly, they just went crazy here. They nerfed her E a lot, and I think that's reasonable. I think a lot of the people complaints about Zoe wasn't that her Q was doing too much damage by itself, but in combination with her E, you get one hit. And they made this so that it's more. If you want the refund, you have to hit a champion. The slow is less, the max distance traveled is less, and the trap radius is less. So I definitely really like all these nerfs when it comes to Zoe. Really, really good. Good stuff, right? Good stuff. In terms of actual raw damage numbers, you have to be a little bit careful because she really only has one damage ability. Because her ulti doesn't do damage, and her W technically doesn't do damage. and her E is to set up her Q damage. So a lot of people were asking for Q damage nerfs, and that's very, very scary when you're coming to a champion that literally only does damage through one ability. Oh, the Spell Thief nerf, it's only they stay on the ground for 20 seconds, but you still last for... See, oh, come on. Wait, why did... I would have liked, honestly, it lasts for 60 seconds, right? I would have liked them to nerf it to where it only works for like one wave. Because I thought that's originally what it was. I like that idea actually a lot. So, I understand going to mid-late game though. That feels really bad because you only have a 30-second window to use. Maybe it's something where it scales based on the amount of points you have at Spell Thief. So early game, like it's this, but as the game progresses, like it goes up in terms of duration that you can have the item or skill. I kind of like that idea quite a bit now that it's in my head. This is good in the sense that you can kind of maybe zone people away from a bubble that gets popped past their appropriate like range, where it has to be relatively risky for them to go in, but not the kind of nerf I was looking for in her W. Okay, let's keep going. Zyra. Base mana regen increased, mana regen growth decreased, W charge time reduced whenever Zyra kills. What? W no longer increases with plant health. One of the champions that makes us have long discussions about what healthy gameplay pattern is. Even so more than when she's a thorn between a mid laner and support makes us think about what... We always get super excited when we see champions having fun play patterns in more than one role. Zyra especially, we found ways for her to have a support in a healthier way, but it wasn't all flowers just yet. Decided changes to provide our favorite Fern more agency to go where she wants or where her team needs her the most. So Zyra sucks mid lane. Let me just throw that out there right now. She's a really, really squishy champion, really, really slow in terms of base move speed, and gets initiated on really easily. And she's really only there, she does a lot of damage. She's really, really good at the divers, but you would typically choose other champions. So, backing my way up a little bit, she's a support. For the most part, she's a support champion. Mana regen, so really, really strong early game, of course. Maybe more of a late game nerf with this. Garden of Thorns. Max seed spawn range is 900. Okay, they've nerfed it by quite a bit. Plant duration is 8 seconds at all levels, which is much higher than it was before. Passive seed duration 30 seconds. 15 down from below, so you can't stack it as much to help leash or do a really, really strong level 1. That's actually really important in the terms of actual seed duration. Plant health is 8. Plant gold on kill is 3. 8? What is 8? Plants now die instantly to melee basic attacks, but to survive more hits from damage over time, and small minions. What about ranged melee attacks? Range basic melee attacks. Oh, they need 2. Single target spells can kill it in 1. AoE can kill it in 2 ticks. Damage over... Really? Did this need to be in the game? Single target... Single target spells killing it in 1 is kind of interesting. Say 1 SQ just straight up kills the plant. I don't know if that's better or worse. This is probably... The damage over time is less, and large minions of monsters do 2. So it's a late game nerf and somewhat of an early game buff against most champions, I guess is what I would say. But it seems like it's a nerf from a support perspective because you can clear plants really well if you're coordinated now. Rampant growth no longer grants Zyra plants extra health when they kill a champion her regrowth recharge reduced by 20%, 100% for champion takedowns, large minion kills, large monsters. Are they trying to make her a jungler too? Because I'm interested, right? You got me interested. Enraged plants now gain 50% current health and max. So that's cool. That's really nice. They make it a little bit tankier for them. This is actually kind of cool. Usually, when you think about Zyra, you think of her as a champion that's kind of a one-hit wonder, in the sense that when people dive, you throw all your plants in one spot, and then you just drop your ulti on one spot, and she becomes a monster in that one area. You are an area controlling like anti-diving champion. Now in a situation where like if you're winning the team fight or you're getting kills in team fights, you can kind of increase the amount of, I guess, your relative impact, the maximum time of your relative impact across the team fight, especially if it's going well for you. It's interesting. I like the idea of this concept. I'm not really sure actually how the plant thing is going to change, if it's going to be better or worse. It seems like it's. I legitimately cannot tell. The only thing that throws me or immediately comes to mind is the fact that you can give worse level 1 leashes and you can't cheese the bush as much as anymore. I like what they're doing with the actual team fight ability for her to do more. And I guess we'll see what happens with Zyra. I don't want to spend too much more time on her. Items Bramble Vest. Reflect damage now has lower base damage but scales with armor. It's still proving too strong as a spot counter against basic attackers thanks to spike of strength it provides against them. Working to dial that back a bit so it doesn't take over the lane phase. Oh wow, they nerfed it by a lot. All right, so I wanted Bramble Vest to be nerfed in a way where you cut the healing to a less degree somewhere, and then execution is the same way. In this situation, they decide to actually just nerf the damage it provides, which is another way to do it. I don't think it's bad either. If you noticed already, you see that there's a bunch of tank nerfs already. Maokai nerfs, Ornn nerfs, and Shen nerfs, right? And this is just another nerf on top to make it so that these tanks do less damage to these bruisers, so bruisers should, in theory, be able to slowly, like, beat up the tanks. In theory. I don't know how much it actually works, but in theory, that should be the case, which is good. At 120 plus armor, it has is a buff, but usually you just want to prevent people from going Bramble Vest first item, and it feels like the Fiora or Darius or whatever you're playing against can't do anything on the first item back. Sunfire, aura damage increased. 2 items that have enabled consistent laning patterns for tanks this season have been Sunfire and Bramble Vest. We're not really happy with the play patterns that arise from either being the go-to item on tanks. Sunfire Cape tends to lead to overly high base damage on tanks with little cost, agreed. Bramble Vest makes playing basic attack champions in the top lane overly prohibitive, agreed. However, without either of these items, it becomes clear that tank laning patterns fall apart. At this point, it's clear that Sunfire is the healthier dynamic, so we're running the... What? No. I just talked about how they're nerfing a lot. I guess. Okay, so health armor items in general have kind of been a weird balance thing, and not so much is discussed about it here. So the idea of if you're buying a health plus armor item. Sorry, I think I did health damage. Health armor item. There's Sunfire Cape, there's Randuin's, and there's one other thing I'm missing. Sunfire Cape, Randuin's. I think that's it. Oh, Deadman's. Usually what happens is one of the three is heavily overtuned, or the other ones are nerfed. So as soon as one gets nerfed, the other two become great. Or two get nerfed, one becomes God. So at the moment, in the current meta, Randuin's is God. Just the best possible item to buy at all points in time. Just if you, whatever happens, even if you're a champion that can use Dead Man's mobility really well, you're still buying Randuin's because it's just super strong. Both as a defensive item, it's the best health armor item in the game, hands down. Sapphire Cape, since this nerf, has seen relatively almost no play. Part of the reason why it doesn't see play is because you actually get kind of mini wave clear with Bramble Vest, and a lot of the matchups where you would take Sunfire, Bramble Vest plus other health items just kind of replaced it. So I don't necessarily. Sunfire Cape should be there to give wave clear to champions for sure. However, when Sunfire was in the game at this damage ratio, it was giving what was their exact words? Leads to overly high base damage on tanks with little cost and overall durability. This is exactly why they nerfed it in the beginning. I don't think necessarily that having this item in the game increases healthy tank lane patterns. It just makes tanks better. Because you're essentially giving tanks high base damage value again for a reason that you're telling me was a problem back then, but because Sunfire isn't being used a lot, needs to get reverted here. It's very strange to me. Maybe what Riot wants to do is they want to try to push Sunfire to be the definitive armor health item. So what ends up happening is that a lot of tanks, they don't find the value in getting Bramble Vest because the early health will be a lot more incentivizing. And so by like sneakily, Riot then makes tanks all want to buy Sunfire, but making it so much better than Bramble Vest component wise that no one wants to build Bramble Vest except for in situations where you're literally against Fiora. And even if you are against Fiora, maybe Sunfire is just better. So maybe that's their dastardly kind of plan, is to make Sunfire so good that by going Bramble Vest, you feel bad because you don't have a Sunfire. And I can kind of actually see that happening, which is pretty funny. Let's just say I'm surprised by this buff, and it's definitely going to have a lot of influence. And in like the strength of top laners. Generally top lane, it seems like, has gotten nerfed between the first top lane tanks have gotten nerfed between the first back to the Sunfire completion, which is a fairly large period of time in the laning phase, probably like 12-15 minutes. But afterwards, they're still very, very good. And maybe Riot's plan is that they just want to have those that much time for bruisers to be able to kind of take advantage of tanks, hopefully. And I think that's a good window. It's not a bad window. I think after that point, once Sunfire Cape gets completed, all these nerfs don't matter, right? The Shen nerf doesn't matter at all. The Or nerf, I mean, if he's using this item, doesn't matter at all. And the Maokai nerf, for the most part, doesn't matter either. You are giving up maybe CDR options to be able to go Sunfire Cape, but people will do that because you're getting a ton of aura damage straight up. Alright, anyways, not talking about this. Let's keep going. So, we talked about a lot of runes. Let's just go case by case. Exposure is not added to target after damage from the attack that applied it. Okay, so no problem. Lethal tempo cooldown decreased to 6 seconds, so it got buffed. Still probably only good on Kog'Maw, maybe good on AD Varus, but generally press attack is just super, super good. Fleet footwork is the bad warlords, but what they're doing now is they increase the bonus AD damage ratio, and this is the strangest thing, the AP damage ratio. I'm surprised by that. If it activates, if it's a crit, then you heal for 40% crit modifier. I think Jhin might look for fleet footwork again, maybe Caitlyn as well. There are a couple champions that didn't want to use press the attack or other stuff because they're more poke oriented or couldn't use a lot of autos to be able to do it. Definitely think there's a potential chance that it's now better for champions like Jhin. No big deal. I think this is good. All good. Lethal tempo and fleet footwork were both weaker. Keystones. This is precision. Over heal. This thing sucks. So 40% of healing, great. At some point, this is going to become relevant. Generally, this just is not very good right now. I think it's only good in like a Soraka plus insane healing comp. Maybe Soraka Vlad and Italy that you could push out so much healing on one target that gets bombarded. Triumph nerf. All right, this is good. I talked about nerf to 12 down to 12%. My last talk about, I think my last patch notes talked about potentially nerfing Triumph to this. Great. Presence of Mind buff. Now this is surprising. A lot of people are already taking Presence of Mind, and it's super good on a lot of champions. Great on stuff like Karthus for all, and super good on Cassin. Disgustingly good on Cassin. People are taking out Pantheon. AP Kog'Maw is great with Presence of Mind. I'm surprised they decided to buff it. I think it was decent at the kind of level it was. Presence of Mind gives you infinite mana for when you level up or get a kill, and it's very, very good. Especially with a Triumph nerf as well, and these are all sharing the same tree. Surprised they decided to buff this. And coup de grace, they nerfed the damage increase because everyone takes this over everything else unless your name is Tryndamere or Karthus for the most part. So, yeah, I think the damage nerf is good. I think taking a little bit of damage away from the game is ideal, actually. Let's go. Domination, eyeballs persist. Okay, so better for like roamers, better for supports. And eyeball, a lot of supports will be taking eyeball collection because. Wait, no, they won't. This is the ADAP adaptive item. Oh, it's just for more damage. This isn't that important. It means you'll hit your 20 eyeball cap faster. Oh no, it's slower. It's 2-1. Were people taking this? Did it deserve a nerf? Everyone's going Zombie Ward instead, right? Because it's so powerful, both vision-wise. I'm surprised they didn't nerf Zombie Ward. I actually think that's so good. Alright. I'm surprised by this. Hunter. Tooltips for all 3 Hunter runes now show who you have and who you have. Thank God. Sometimes I lose track of which one I didn't kill. Usually I just assume it's the top laner. But there's some situations where I don't know who it is, and it's nice to be able to know which person you're missing from the 5 objective thing. Okay, sorcery, phase rush. So this is Storm Raiders. It sucks. So melee phase rush users are almost universally outperforming their range. Yeah, of course, because ranged champions shouldn't be taking phase rush. We're giving ranged users slow resistance as well. No. Stop. What is this? I think it's correct that only the melee champions get slow resistance. I don't know if people remember Storm Raiders back then. I don't think slow resistance is something you should be giving to champions easily. Melees get slow resistance because gap closing and staying there is very difficult for melee champions. Ranged champions getting slow resistance is kind of nuts because they're able to. Giving them the extra move speed was good. I think was good enough. I just think that what happened was phase rush became just a very nerfed keystone before. So let me show you what Storm Raiders used to be and what the current numbers on this are right now. So here's phase rush. Here's oh god. Oh god. Well, I messed it up. Your Storm Raider search is phase rush. Okay. So Storm Raider search gave you 40% movement speed. Okay. And now it's at 15% at early game. It goes up to 40% at the very, very end. It got nerfed by an insane amount. More than 50% early. That's the reason people don't take phase rush. If even without the slow resistance on ranged champions, they would still love to take phase rush if it was still good. But it's not. And the reasoning is because they nerfed it by so much. So rather than giving ranged champions slow resistance, I think the idea is that you still leave off ranged champions getting slow resistance because champions like Ori were taking Ori, Syndra, a bunch of random mid laners that shouldn't be taking Storm Raiders. Were taking Storm Raiders because mobility was actually insane in the game, and instead they should just buff the initial base movement speed. So going up from 15% to something like 20, 25, while still making melee it better for melees is a better way to balance this keystone. I don't like that they're saying like here, range should have the same benefits as well, because I don't think they deserve it. I don't want to live in a world where every mid laner goes Storm Raiders because for like the insane utility that it provides, when it shouldn't be the case. I already think in the game has so much move speed at the moment with Celerity. I don't want to live in a world where Storm Raiders or Phase Rush and Celerity are like the go-to things, and everyone has over 350 move speed at all points during the game. Anyways, let's keep going. Celerity, move speed decreased. Yes. This thing, way too good. This thing, by the way, this is equivalent to almost 3 full movement speed quints. If it gave 0 AD and 0 AP, it would still be good. Let me just throw it out there, would still be good. What did TF, what did Soul all run mid lane? 3 movement speed quints. What did Rise? 3 movement speed quints. At 3%, it's still going to be an excellent rune. People are still going to be taking it because Transcendence procs at level 10, which is pretty late in the game, and if you're a bot laner, you're never going to pick that shit up. If you're a mid laner, you'll pick it up situationally, but the move speed is still going to be very, very helpful for you. Great. Good nerf for a thing that was way too good. Mirror Shell. Why did they not buff the armor? Oh, they're making it's because there's a lot of more MR. I actually think it's very hard to buff the resolve tree, because as you start nerfing other trees with, Celerity gets nerfed, as you start nerfing, I'm not going to even talk about this. That doesn't matter. Triumph and this get nerfed. Resolve becomes a more appealing tree over time. Also, I think a lot of times people like the glitz and the glam of stuff like Scorch, of Transcendence, of Celerity, when they're just being greedy. I think that Second Wind and Mirror Shell as a combination right now gets you out of lane. And there are situations where that's all you need to do. If you're playing like a Vayne and you're confident that once you hit mid game you're gonna be a god as long as you do it evenly, or you're playing Caston, the same thing is true. And currently on Diana, I have to run Resolve because without it I can't get through lane. I think that people are sleeping on the Resolve tree a little bit, and as other things get nerfed, Resolve is going to start being more and more appealing over time. I think it's already good and relatively underrated right now, but it'll become better as, stuff like this gets nerfed. Overgrowth. Now appears above minions and you get help from attacking them. Revitalize now boosts shields and heals. It didn't have self-cast on? I'm surprised. That's really strange. I knew Karmas that were taking this beforehand. But I guess it works on Karma and Vlad and stuff like that. Okay, cool. I think the only thing I'm surprised that they didn't nerf, I would have liked the nerf on Scorch. I think it's too overtuned right now. Right now, I would have liked a small Aftershock nerf and a small Scorch nerf. From 30 damage to like 20 would have been nice. And for Aftershock, like a small resist nerf, it would have been really good. But I'm actually really surprised Scorch is in the game in the current value right now. Scorch is essentially the same keystone as Meteor, point for point, early game. Except for Meteor has unreliability in that it can miss, but Scorch can't. They're both 20-second cooldowns. Sure, Meteor gets decreased cooldown based on like hitting them additionally with spells, but especially early game, that's not happening unless you're playing like a multi-spell thing like, MFE or something like that. So I think Scorch right now is giving you almost keystone level poke damage, and it's why a lot of the poke damage champions are getting so much, like that plus Comet being the same tree is causing too much poke damage to exist in the game. I would like to see early game Scorch damage nerfed so that poke doesn't become too good, because I think at the moment it's a little bit too good. Cuptomancy. We're really happy with how Cuptomancy landed, but we think there's still room for improvements. Our goal is to reduce the gap between extreme cases. Okay, so no longer increases the attack range by 25. All right. Loot table mechanism update to decrease variance in loot over time. Okay, cool. So making it so it's less like super one-sided and more pseudo RNG. Fair enough. Rune upgrades and bug fixes. Don't care. Dark Harvest. More fighting and more kills makes Dark Harvest pretty strong in ARAM. I never see anyone ever use this except for one Graves player in high elo. That's it. I don't even. I'm pretty sure Dark Harvest just sucks. In normal mode, they upgraded some ability icons. Funnily enough, on a lot of champions that no one plays. Mundo, Amumu, and Nunu. So I'm surprised they didn't update stuff from, Ari or something that people actually play. Health bar updates. We're updating in-game health bars. You want to relearn anything. You get some new toys. Expect more play, counterplay around defensive windows. Awareness of special states and big moments more clearly reflected. So new mega states. Spell shielding and invulnerable. New mortality states. Extra life, resurrecting, unkillable. New mobility states. Unstoppable. New defensive windows, armor shredded, MR shredded, combo shredded, armor up, MR up, combo up. Okay. So let's talk about visual clarity. Visual clarity is a reason why I think Riot's focus on visual clarity is the reason why you can watch this game competitively and why playing the game doesn't feel bad. It's super, super important and underrated. And I love that they're doing stuff like this constantly to the game because they understand how important visual clarity is to the game. So being able to see at a glance what something does, super, super, super important. And why League has been great. So I remember the last time they did a visual clarity fix or buff or change. Sorry, it's change. When you saw a slight, small indicator on who ignited which person. And while it didn't feel like it's a big deal, and it wasn't a huge deal, it's small things like that kind of stack up over time to become something that you can appreciate. I think that I love when Riot does stuff like this. I think that this is very, 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 very good. Any kind of more visual clarity in the game is going to be better. Sure, it may look like complete garbage in the first take. haven't seen what it looks like. Maybe it's just too cluttery. Like instead of visual clarity, it colors up the screen too much. But I like that they're doing this more and more in the game as they're introducing new abilities and new CC mechanics like brittle, all kinds of stuff where it's kind of difficult to figure out what it is on like a quick look. I think that this is great, super good. In client champion bios. I don't read lore in client, but maybe I will after. You'll now have the ability to invite people to your party from the end of game screen without adding them as a friend. Who people don't want to make your league official. This isn't relevant to me because I don't have friends. Club max limit is now doubling to 100. This is really cool. I know a lot of people want to join exclusive clubs like champion name clubs, Janna, Cat, stuff like that. So I think that even at a limit of 100 seems kind of short. I think that you should have higher limits, And then 3 skins, which all 3 of these I don't play. New emotes, which I don't actually use emotes in game. Poro Keen, 8 Snow Battle, 8 all random Earth. Okay, that's relatively cool. Usually I don't read any bug fixes. Because these are all, it's like one is important out of 30. Okay, overall, kind of confused by Gallia Sunfire change, and everything else is good. Actually, everything else is really good. Storm Raider, Sunfire, and actually, let me put it this way. I actually don't mind Storm Raiders being for slow resistance for range right now because I think that at the moment Storm Raiders actually just sucks. Phase Rush actually is just very bad till mid late game, and so that's why I don't mind it. But I just think that it would have been easier to buff it and then not give slow resistance to or decrease slow resistance to range threats. Anyways, I'm done with this. Oh, it looks like it's been a good patch, and I can't wait for them to, I don't know if they did enough for top lane bruisers. So hopefully top lane becomes less degenerate in terms of just having tanks kill everyone. I'm hoping that's kind of the big takeaway for me here. It's like I hope to God tanks can do really well, or sorry, tanks can do worse, and bruisers can do really well. Apologies, wrong champion type. And I'll be jungling Morgana tomorrow. Anyways, I'm gonna go play some mats. See you guys in a bit. Oh